2020 was a very difficult year for a lot of people, myself included. The COVID-19 thing kicked off and, people were stuck at home, quarantined. They couldn't see their families. People were passing away. It was hard, and it was hard for me as well in my personal life. And with episode 32 of the Geekdom101 Podcast, it's the first episode of the year 2020, and it's early in the year. This came out originally January 6, 2020. It actually came out while I was still in Japan on my trip over there. And, when you listen to this episode, it's so funny because we're so innocent. Like, we had no idea what was coming. We didn't know what was going to happen just a couple months after this. And 2020 is actually the last year that I did this podcast. I put it on hold because I had other things going on that I had to take care of in my life, and I just couldn't keep doing it. So these last few episodes from 32 to 52 are pretty much the end until I decide to, of course, do more, which is coming. Look forward to that. But this episode, Roberto Blake from RobertoBlake.com and the Create Awesome Academy, he's a guy who I consider a mentor. When I first started the Geekdom101 YouTube channel back in 2015, he made a video that I saw on my feed, how to grow YouTube subscribers. And since then, I've been subscribed to him, and I've been keeping an eye on the things that he says and the things that he does and the tips. And he's very, very good at making money. He's good at passive income stuff, affiliate marketing. He's far better than me and far more diversified than me when it comes to different streams of income. And so he's somebody whose brain I like to pick a lot when it comes to this. And that's what this episode is about. This episode was almost 2 hours long discussing starting a business, self-employment, tips on YouTube, tips on business, defining who you are, and why being a business owner is ultimately the goal to really accomplishing a lot more in life than you thought you were going to. I can honestly tell you that when I started my business, it changed my life. Was it hard? Yeah. No one's saying it's easy, but it changed my life because it opened up so many doors and so many possibilities that I would never have had if it wasn't for, me doing this. And Roberto was a big part of that, helping me out. So whenever Roberto speaks, you want to listen to him. You want to listen because he's always got something interesting to say. So let's go ahead and get to Roberto Blake on episode 32 of the Geekdom101 Podcast. And welcome back to the Geekdom101 Podcast. And as promised, I have Roberto Blake here with me from RobertoBlake.com. And we're going to talk about all kinds of, awesome, creating awesome, as you want to say, and how people can really sort of define who they are. If everybody has their own path in life, so to speak. But I feel like so many people want to be entrepreneurs. They want to be self-employed, but they're afraid to do it. And there is a lot more responsibility when you're self-employed, but the benefits of it, I think, in my opinion, overcome all of that. So, Roberto, hello. You're here on the podcast. I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back, Danny. Really appreciate it.
No, for sure. And Roberto, of course, to tell the people kind of what you do is you're essentially this sort of, I guess you have a lot of things you do, but you're like a motivational speaker / content creator. Like it's hard because you've done a lot of stuff. All right. So
maybe it's easier if I just give them, the shorthand version of my story.
Photoshop tutorials. No, go for it, man. You do it.
So, as Danny alluded to, I'm what's known as a creative entrepreneur. And so there's a lot of different type of entrepreneurs. You got some entrepreneurs who do real estate. You have other people who are tech entrepreneurs, right? I'm a creative entrepreneur because I'm a creative guy. I came from a background of advertising and graphic design. I was a weird kid. I was into anime, comics, photography, art, drawing, illustration, all the stuff that, we love now. And that, if I was a kid in school today for all of my interest and hobbies, I'd be a golden god, right? But back then you got bullied for all of that stuff. So, it was a little rough, but I loved the things that I loved, and I didn't want to be ashamed of them. And I just took my lumps, and, you either liked me or you didn't. And not a lot in between there. So fast forward, and I decided that I wanted to be the person. There's so many artistic people in my family. I decided that I wanted to be the one who made it full time on my creativity. And so I did a lot of different things. I went to community college. I paid cash. I had 3 younger siblings. I didn't come from a lot of money. My parents got divorced when I was a teenager. Moved around all the time because my dad was military. Mom became a nurse. So I mean, it was a lot. But what got me through everything was I always came back to my art. I always came back to my creativity. I always came back to my imagination. It was my only escape, and it was me building a world for myself where I can live in and where I could be happy. And I ultimately wanted to be able to do things like that for a living. Now, I thought I was going to be an animator, Danny. I don't know if I ever told you that. I thought I was going to be either a comic book artist or an animator.
I think you guys said you wanted to be a photographer.
I loved photography, and I actually did that for a while. I did that for a while. But originally when I was a young kid, I was drawing all the time, and I literally thought that I was going to work for Marvel or Disney. And the thing
now
is,
they're one company.
Yes, right. So
Right.
So the path not
sorta.
taken. All that being said, though, I thought that was going to be what I did, but I got discouraged for a lot of reasons. Part of it was I just never felt I was really talented enough to pursue that in the end, and also when I got into computers at a young age and everything like that, I mean, for what we could afford and for what the technology was, even with like open source and stuff, it just wasn't very good. And I felt limited by the technology of my time and the resources I had. If I was a kid growing up today, you have almost unlimited resources if you want to do that, if you have access to a home computer, even a cheap $500.
Or even a smartphone.
Or a smartphone, yeah, with even just like a lot of the tools between smartphones, iPads, this or that. If you decide you want to be a comic book artist, you have the tools, and a lot of it's open source or free or cheap, or you can make the money mowing lawns and doing odd jobs and stuff like that today. Not the case, 20 years ago. And the reality is that I think there's so much opportunity today, which is why I think people want to be entrepreneurs. And so I worked at companies, Danny, I worked at, I did all the retail stuff you do when you're young and all that good stuff. But I always side hustled. I always did my art and my photography and my design work and websites and all those things. And I learned video editing at a young age before YouTube even ever existed. I'd edited like over 100 videos before YouTube ever existed.
I actually learned how to edit in high school, 9th grade, on the old school double tape editing machine. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I edited an AMV. This is back in '98.
I remember these days.
Yes, DMX Rough Riders Anthem. Right. I used because that was the hottest song in '98. That was like the biggest song that year. Huge. So I remember I edited some Dragon Ball Z AMVs back in '98, but it was really bad because I was half fan sub, half recorded from television, VHS quality.
Mine was mostly whatever I could find on LimeWire and BearShare.
Oh yeah, right. Well, this is even before all that. This is like before any of that stuff even existed in '98. And I remember editing that video, and then later on I learned how to edit with Adobe Premiere 6, which is kind of funny because
that's why I learned on.
Right. People give me, we're the same age. People give me shit for like having other people edit my videos for me, like my main videos on Geekdom101, and they think that I'm not that good of an editor. And it's like, no, I can edit. It's just that I don't have the patience that I used to have back then. That's really it. It's
well, you put in all those years. It's a tedious thing. It's like when you do it that long, you don't want to do it anymore.
Exactly. And when I first started YouTube, I always make the jokes. I'm always like, and we've talked about this, but not really on publicly. I've always talked about how when I first started doing YouTube, the joke was I had a rock band, and this is for people who actually want to do this. Hear me out. I had a rock band microphone from playing Beatles Rock Band. I used Movie Maker, and I used what do you call it? I used PicMonkey to make thumbnails, and not Photoshop. So I literally started with zero overhead, zero. Like, I mean, except for my internet, which I already paid for, and things you already have, computer, zero. And just with that, I was able to accumulate, I think I made it all the way to like 80 or 90K subscribers with just those 3 things. And now I have a better mic. Now I have 2 editors. You know what I mean? I never script my videos anymore. I don't need to. It's just my style. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like, anybody out there's like, what editing equipment should I get? You can get editing software. You can get microphone equipment. But if you can't afford it.
Yeah, Mr. B started with like a webcam and then
Right.
he returned a camera because it wasn't doing nearly as good as, in his opinion, as like the webcam. And then he did like a broken iPhone 5. He got all the way to like 200,000 subscribers on that broken iPhone 5. Like, people really, and I understand wanting to make a quality product. I totally get it, but people are using it as an excuse to not start anything, whether they're starting YouTube, whether they're trying to start a business. They're always like, oh, well, it takes money to make money. It takes money to make money. It's like up to a point. And if we're talking about big money, sure. But to make something, to make any money, no, it really doesn't take any money to
actually,
do it.
the truth is, this is what I've learned in my life. It's not about it takes money to make money. It takes time to make money. That's the reality.
Well,
it takes time.
Well, it takes time. It takes
You
a
gotta
combination
put time
of
in there.
It takes time, and it takes skill, and it takes resources, and it takes them in the right combination. Money can accelerate or make up for some of those things, because if you have money, you can buy other people's time. If you have money,
Right.
you can buy resources that maybe make things faster, like faster computers or faster software or whatever. So it's and it also takes, again, having the energy, because I mean, you have to actually do this stuff unless someone else is. So like it's a combination. It's the right combination of things. I think of it as a lot of people they're so hung up on not feeling like they have enough opportunities, and yet they haven't done the preparation for those opportunities, and a lot of them lack the confidence to take full advantage of an opportunity if it was offered. So opportunity isn't enough. It's not even close to being enough. And while it'd be nice to have, what are you really going to do with it? And are you going to take it as far as you can, or even as far as someone else who might be more prepared or more confident than you? And so people have these expectations about the results they think they're going to get, or the possibilities that they think don't exist for them just because of a quote-unquote lack of opportunity. And I would make the argument, Danny, that they live in the golden age of opportunity. For all the things...
Dude, I've been saying that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've been saying that for years now. I have a very low tolerance for bullshit, mostly because of the fact that the way I've been able to live my life is... And this has been documented for people who really know about me, but some people listening to this probably don't. My parents died before I hit 30. My brother passed away last year, but we were estranged. I don't have anywhere to go. I was homeless at one time, 10 years ago, actually. I have no excuse. Like, a lot of these kids, and this is fine. I'm not trying to knock on them. You know, if you try, you know, if you open up a business, whatever it may be, a restaurant, a streaming service, whatever, it doesn't matter, and it fails, a lot of times you can just move back in with your parents and rebuild. I don't have that luxury, unfortunately. I don't have parents to move back into. My parents are in urns in my laundry room. You know, my parents are not with us anymore. So I have no family because we're immigrants. So my family's all in Cuba. So I'm literally screwed. If I can't make money, I'm fucked. And so because of that, I have a real low tolerance for people who make excuses, especially the ones who blame other creators for their lack of success. I remember there's actually a number of people who in the anime sector who are this way, who they blame the bigger YouTubers for their lack of success, for their lack of growth, even though we all started at zero.
In what way? How can it be?
They think we're monopolizing the content when it's like, no, we all started at zero. I started at zero. You started at zero. We're not. If you and I were like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, or like, you know, the Bella twins, who have like thousands and hundreds of thousands, millions of fans out there from exposure from television shows and things like that, okay. But I literally was
actually
a nobody.
Even then that wouldn't be, because again, the Rock didn't immediately benefit from even being a third generation superstar, because he was the grandson of Pete Maivia and the son of Rocky Johnson. And when he tried to be a face, he was obscure for almost 18 months of trying to be a face, and it didn't work. And he had to become a heel first and make his own way. So because no one cared.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about like YouTube, or you know, content creation. Because The Rock has a channel, Will Smith has a channel. Like, those guys, Jimmy Kimmel, they obviously have advantages that you and I don't have. Like, they have an advantage.
Well, they only have the advantage of being a household name, but they earn that advantage, and so I think it's valid that they have that. And people whine about the idea that YouTube's favoring them. It's like, no, the audience is favoring them because they are known, because they're a household name. Because here's what people don't understand, and this is about what building your brand is. audience. Is like, you have to be known for something. No one's owed attention, Danny. No one's entitled to an audience. No one deserves an audience just because they want one. And it's so sad to me when young creators, and I'm sorry if this is anybody in the audience, it's so sad to me when people say YouTube is my dream. I want to be a big YouTuber. I want 1 million subscribers, because I'm like, I don't think you want that. I mean, you want that, but I don't think you want to become somebody who's deserving of that. And they go, well, what do you mean? And I asked them, it's like, why should 1 million people pay attention to you? What are you going to do? What are you going to do that's so great, that's so amazing? And then they're like, well, I'm gonna be like Jake Paul, or I'm gonna make this kind of content, or I'm gonna be a Fortnite YouTuber, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna like, I'm like, what is it that you are going to do that is deserving of the admiration of 1 million eyeballs? Do you realize that people train their whole lives to be Olympic athletes to have that and don't make it? Do you realize that there are people who go and spend 5 years performing in dive bars, getting bombed and getting like shit thrown at them to not get that? Do you realize that, like, you want that and you're frustrated after 6 months of uploading content, whereas like freaking Jim Carrey was sitting there bussing tables for 6 years with a $1 million like check that he wrote himself to get to fight for every scrap of an opportunity? Really?
Not just that, Roberto, but like somebody like me, I actually started doing podcasts back in 2008. And I did a weekly radio show from 2008 all the way to 2011. So
was that back on like Live 360?
Blog Talk Radio.
Oh. Wow.
Blog Talk Radio, which I quit them when they started to charge $40 a month for hosting. Yeah, screw you. Now YouTube I can stream for free.
Right.
So we did live shows.
Better quality.
And yeah, way better quality. Back then it was phone quality. But the point I'm trying to make is I busted my ass to try to make something of myself, whether it be a podcast or something where I can have my voice be heard. And now finally with Geekdom101, I'm able to do that and I'm able to host conventions and all that shit. But what irritates me, the point I was trying to make is not about The Rock and all that stuff. It's more so like you and I didn't have advantages. And for somebody to say, and they say it all the time, like, they get mad because they think that people like myself and other YouTubers in the anime sector specifically are,
I see it outside of that. I see it in gaming. I see it everywhere, dude.
Oh, I know, no, me too. But I'm using that as an example. Monopolizing content. It's like, we're not monopolizing shit. We started with 0, and so are you. Everybody starts at 0. Unless you are already established and famous, everyone starts at 0. So it's up to you. It's up to you to build yourself up. And yeah, and the truth is, let me keep it real. We all get breaks. Life gives you a break. Whether you're religious or whether you're not religious, you are going to get a break in life at some point. It's up to you to take advantage of it. When I first started doing YouTube, was March of 2015, I had no idea Dragon Ball Super was going to come. We had no clue. Within about a month or so when it got announced, about a month and a half after I started YouTube. So I started YouTube with no intentions of even doing it full time. I just wanted to just communicate with people and bring them onto my website, which that was my goal, was to get my website traffic up.
Yeah,
and then what happened was, yeah, I that was the original goal. Yeah, and then now it's like,
now we want to keep people on YouTube and not siphon. But now I really do want to siphon that traffic for the website again. Now that the algorithm's different.
Right. It goes back and forth. But the point I'm trying to make to you is like, we all start at 0. So for somebody out there who's bitter and, like get your head out of your ass, bro. Like, everybody starts at 0. It's up to you to build up. Like I said, Dragon Ball Super helped out my channel a lot. That's the truth. That's unquestionably a fact.
But you prepared.
Star Wars came out then too.
But you prepared. What if you had waited for Dragon Ball Super? You didn't know that was going to...
that's the thing. I had no idea it was coming. But also, here's the other thing, too. At the time, I was working a full-time job. That's another excuse I always hear. Well, I don't have time because I'm working. Okay, look, I get it. You work, you go to school, you might have too much on your plate to do content. I get it. Dude, when I went to college... I don't know if I ever told you this story. This is just to inspire the people. When I was in college, I was still working full time. So my college was from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and my work was from 4 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. at night, which means I had to wake up at 7 in the morning, shower, get dressed, brush your teeth, go to college, come home for an hour, then go right to work. And I wouldn't go to sleep I get off work at 11:30. I wouldn't go to sleep at midnight. I go to bed at 2, 3 in the morning because I would have to catch up on everything I missed. And, so it's one of those things where, like, I don't take. I'm sorry, bro, but I don't take this bitch behavior. You're being a bitch. You're being a bitch if you're actually making excuses. Because I had no excuse. I was going to school and I graduated. I was going to tech school and I was working, right? And I did it on like 4 hours of sleep a night. I mean, did it suck? Sure, I did. Was I happy when I left? Yeah, but you have to do that sometimes to succeed.
I don't recommend that for people who aren't literally like fighting tooth and nail, because I think you come from a place where fighting tooth and nail is definitely all you know, and like you
my
came
whole
from,
life.
Yeah, but I also don't think that that's most people's extreme. So
no, I know. I get you. No, I have a low tolerance for bullshit, Roberto.
I largely agree with you, but what I'm not going to recommend is for people who have a healthier overall situation, because I mean, I think that when you're in an unhealthy situation already, that a little extra unhealthy, I mean, you're already in a bad enough situation where if one thing goes wrong, you know, you're already screwed. So like, what's a little less sleep at that point? You're already in trouble. You're worried about having somewhere to sleep at that point. So what's a little extra hustle? That's different, right? But
this was even before I even went homeless. What I'm telling you about my college and my work was before my mom even passed away. It was like I've always been built like this, and that's why I have a short fuse. My parents passing away made it much more hectic, added more anxiety. But I'm saying the whole college and going to work thing, my mom was alive. In fact, my mom helped me out a lot because she would have my clothes ready to go. She would be the one to wash the clothes and clean everything. She had that ready. Imagine if you had to do all that and clean a house and maintain a home, or if you have kids. I couldn't handle that.
My buddy, my good friend Tim, he runs multiple YouTube channels and he has his YouTube consulting stuff, but he and his wife have 7 kids. Like
Jesus,
and they run multiple channels. Some of their kids have channels now, because they grew up in this, and like, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I sympathize with whatever people's situation is, but I'm just, I think you agree with me on like, don't let your circumstance become an excuse or a justification for why you can't give more, do more, or give more to your ambition, or give more to your goals, or give more to your dreams. Because what I tell people is that it's like, I tell them to be honest with themselves and ask this question: is this really the best you can do? Isn't it possible that you have more to give and more to offer than this? Is this really the limit of your potential? And when I ask people that, they think about it a little bit more thoughtfully, and they realize that like they can work a little harder. And I think people in your community especially appreciate that, coming from martial arts and coming from the inspiration of Dragon Ball, because it's something I grew up with too. And that's what like I think is a lot of my value system, much like yours, is probably derived from the content I consumed, which a lot of it was anime and a lot of it was those early 80s films. Some of them I look back and I go, no, that's dumb. But at the time, a lot of them were very motivating. And so I look at those things and I try to pass on some of those lessons and frame things from the perspective of almost, I guess, that wise sensei of like, this isn't the limit of your ability. And it'd be very interesting to see what your limits look like when you really go in. And do you really care enough about this? Do you want this? Do you have some motivating force? Do you have some drive? Because again, I think a lot of people who complain have very shallow ambition or very shallow dreams, and
I agree.
And
with
a lot
you.
of times not the discipline and work ethic to see those things through. Because what would you sacrifice?
You got a lot of dreamers, man. You got a lot of dreamers.
There's nothing wrong with dreaming.
There's nothing wrong with it. But if you're not willing to put the work in, don't waste my fucking time. That's. I'm sorry, Roberto. I hate to be blunt about it. You can be the good cop, and I'll be the bad cop.
Well, I think it's not waste their own time because they're on the clock here. It's ticking away regardless. So it's more about respecting yourself, is what I would say. Because again, I think that's one of people's larger problems. You and I have talked about this. People don't have a framework for success in their life. They don't have a sense of purpose, and they fundamentally lack self-respect. And part of self-respect is realizing that you owe it to yourself to become a person of value. So my problem with a lot of people, whether they say they want to be an entrepreneur and they want to be a millionaire, or they say they want to be a 1 million subscribed YouTube channel, because these things are very similar in their dynamics. They have different applications, but they're very similar.
Right.
They're a big, ambitious, audacious dream, and it's fine to have those things if you are willing to honor them, and if you are willing to if you're
to work for
prepared,
it, right?
if you're to work for it, yes, but also to understand that it won't be enough to work. There will be sacrifices that you will have to make. There's an opportunity cost. You and I watched Full Metal Alchemist. There's going to be some equivalent exchange here, and you have to realize that, like, oh wow, that's a pretty hefty fine. Like, and that's just the way it is. If you're going to have to dream big, you're going to have to give big too, and you're going to have to give a lot to your goals. And there's a real chance it might not work out, and you have to.
And
accept
a lot of that is time too. Like I thought, that's my whole point when I was saying time. Time is the big thing. You have to sacrifice your time when you come home from work. Like in 2015, when I first started my YouTube channel, when I came home from work, I didn't fuck around and play video games. I didn't dick around and watch porn. Well, maybe a little bit, but you know what I mean. Like I went in to make videos. I remember. I did a video about the history of Cooler, and I remember I stayed up. I planned to stay up until like 2 a.m. I wound up staying up until like 1 p.m. the next day editing that video. And that's why I have editors now, because I don't want to have to deal with that shit ever again. At least not on videos like that. I was in the grind, and when you're focused, when you're totally focused on something, and this is how I am, you have to finish it. Like you have to, and that's me. This is me. Like I have to, you
have a work ethic of seeing things through.
Yeah, that's me. Here's the weird thing about me, Roberto, is my whole life, dude, I have despised hourly wages. It's not my thing. Like whenever I work a job, because I do YouTube now full time, but content creation, that, but this for the people. But for 10 years I was in IT, and when I would get paid, when I would have a job where I would be like on the phone or helping customers, I would like that job less than the jobs where I would just do jobs, complete them, and move on. Like, for example, when I worked for the cable company, you would get an itinerary of jobs every morning. So you have 18 appointments or 10 appointments. You go to the customer's house, you do it, you're done. Now, you're self-employed. We're going to get to that here in a minute. We're going to talk about all that here in a minute, but when you're self-employed, you can pick how much you want to work. And the harder you work, the more money you're going to make. I remember I saw an interview years ago with Violent J from the ICP, right? And the ICP, in my opinion, makes bottom-of-the-barrel trash music. But as entrepreneurs, holy fucking Christ, dude. As entrepreneurs.
Well, they built a brand. They
built a brand. They built merchandise. These guys are millionaires without a big record label, without anything, and it's all independent music because they know their audience. So these fucking guys, the interview is so incredible. It's one of the deleted scenes from the Beef DVD, Beef 2. And Violent J says, we know how much money we're going to make on every album. It depends on how hard we fucking work and how much we fucking tour. So if they tour and they do 10 extra cities, they're going to make more money off of that same album. And it's like, that's the mentality. Like, I've always been the kind of guy.
That's results driven. You're a task driven person, Danny. That's why you have to do things to the end, because it's a result. It's measurable. It's quantifiable.
Right.
And that's how you are.
And when you're working at a call center, you're half awake. You're waiting.
You're not
for the
rewarded for
in.
working harder or being more efficient. When it's results driven, like when you were doing those outbounds, working for the cable company. Well, that's if you're efficient and you can get things done fast, you make the same amount of money and you gave up less of your time to accomplish it. If you work an hourly wage and you're efficient, your reward is having to do double the work.
Or you
for
just
not more money,
or you just keep your job,
or you just keep your job. And
that's
again,
bullshit.
So there's no incentive to be efficient, effective, because you're just working harder for no additional.
Yeah,
outcome.
You might get a raise, maybe, but there's also politics
But it's so marginal,
and
it's so marginal as to be irrelevant to the actual output you did. It's not proportionate. It's not a proportionate reward. So but you don't have the leverage to decide what's appropriate, and that's the difference.
Exactly, because they'll just get rid of you and hire somebody else, and that's what most companies do anyways. And that's why I'm so pro.
And when you don't have a skill, and by the way, when you don't have a skill that is high demand, low supply, when you don't have a high income skill, when you don't have something competitive in the market to offer, because labor is not competitive enough. And I believe that we should have human intrinsic value, like not to get super, super deep, but I believe that your ability to contribute to the workforce doesn't mean that your value is zero and that your economic value should be zero. But that's just how the way we operate right now it is until or unless that ever changes. And I think that's unreasonable because I think there's a lot of things that get done. I mean, your mom did a lot of hard work to raise you, and she didn't get any, wages on the clock for that. And I think it's the most important job. It's the most important job. I took care of my, my grandmother until she passed and everything like that. There's not a wage for that. There's an opportunity cost for it. And I don't, and again, not to get super deep beyond a certain point philosophically, but I'm making this point because I think that it's partly we have to, if we realize that that's the system that we work within, then I think putting yourself in a position to exit the wages for time equation as quickly as possible is the best thing you can do, which is what I try to teach people on my YouTube channel by teaching them a couple of things. Like I started, like you mentioned earlier, I started teaching people tutorials in software. Do you know why I started teaching people that, Danny?
I'm guessing you did it to teach to help to improve them. You tell me.
I wanted to pass on what I had learned, as Master Yoda would say.
As Yoda said, yes.
Pass on what you've learned, because it was a skill that I had that was mine. And as long as I owned the access to software, which I usually bought or got a license for, and as long as I had a computer of some kind, it meant my skills were my own. And that meant that I could do that job anywhere or anytime, even if they fired me. So the skills were my own. I bought my camera and my camera gear and stuff like that, because then it meant I can always be a photographer. I can always get a photo shoot or a wedding client or a product shoot or whatever. I would have a trade, a means of supporting myself. So I taught people video editing and graphic design and Photoshop and editing, photo retouching and editing, and about cameras and gear, because I wanted them to have what I had, which was leverage, which meant that I could put myself in a position to offer something that less than 10% of humans can do very well, let alone at all. And you only have to be better at it than the person paying you. And it's not something that everyone can compete on, because especially at that time, well, if you want to be a photographer, here's the good news. Even if you're not the best photographer in the world, just having a camera makes you better than someone who doesn't have one. And it makes you, and so that's valuable to a person who needs that skill, either for their business or because they want a family photographer or because they have a wedding or whatever, and you're affordable, you're competitive, you show up, you're available, then it's there. You could be a second shooter to another existing photographer, then you don't even have to get your own gigs. You can just be a really good support shooter and have a really good reputation for being able to be available, show up on time, and not poaching clients. And so there's an opportunity. The same thing with design. Somebody needs a logo, somebody needs business cards, somebody needs print collateral. You're able to do it. So freelancing and moving from corporate to freelancing meant that I could set my rates, I could say no to clients, I could say yes to clients, I had leverage, I had control, and my skills were my own. They can always fire you, but if you have a skill, no one can take that from you, Danny. And I wanted to give people a skill, and the best part is they could go to YouTube and search for it instead of having to go thousands of dollars in debt. Because I understand people want degrees in these things, but the reality is you don't really need it. And it's if you want to go ahead and get that job and work that salary and work that wage. But if you just want to trade your results for money, you don't need a degree. You just need results.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. And I'm not in any way trying to disparage somebody who works an hourly job, because I did it for 10 years. I'm
not either. I did it for a long time. I'm just saying that they're usually being taken advantage of. I'll go further. It's not for me, but but I think that people should exit that as quickly as possible, because as time goes on and you become more efficient at your job, your wages don't increase in proportion to the value that you could offer. And so that's why I'm not for it long term, because wages tend to be stagnant, at least in the economy of the last 10 years has proven that, if not the last 30 years have proven that. I don't know why people stay in it as long as they do beyond not feeling or knowing that there's another option. Because I just don't think that there's any evidence to suggest that there's a long-term employer loyalty in a lot of situations. I don't see a lot of more people retiring with good pensions and saying, oh, this is great and my pension is taking care of me. I see a lot of people who've retired driving me to the airport in Uber. and dropping off food.
Right, yeah, I've seen that a lot, yeah.
So I think that for all the rhetoric around it, it's only worked out for a marginal amount of people, because when I look around, the majority of people it's not working out for them. And so it's not even, well, people would make the argument, and I've heard this before, people make this argument to me, well, Roberto, do you really believe that everybody can be an entrepreneur?
Yes, I believe it.
I believe that it's accessible to anybody, but that doesn't mean everyone can do it, because I don't think everyone I don't think everyone has the temperament, Danny. I don't think everyone has the discipline. But here's the good news.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you completely.
Discipline and work ethic can be acquired. So that means on a long enough timeline, even if you're not ready to be an entrepreneur now, it doesn't mean that never. It means that you could mature into someone who might make a good entrepreneur eventually. And it could start with just a side hustle, because for me, that's how it started. I started, whenever I was working, I was also side hustling, because I was never making enough money. So I was always side hustling. What never occurred to me until it did was that in terms of the hours that I was trading on my side hustles for results, even as a teenager, I would have been better off just trying to do more of that work than work for hourly. I'll give you a primary example. When I was a teenager, I worked at the local bookstore in the mall. I worked in a Walden Books in the mall, which then later became a Borders. And I was like, back in the day, this is like, late 90s, early 2000s or something like that.
This is early 2000s for sure, because I remember Walden Books.
Yeah. So I was making like $6.50 an hour or whatever, right? Like, no experience working through college or whatever. I was making $6.50 an hour. But that meant that even if I did get a full day a full day's work in, because you weren't always getting full-time hours either. But let's say I got full-time hours. That means after working my butt off in taxes, I'm going to make maybe $35 for a whole day's work of busting my ass. And when I think about that by comparison, I literally could have just mown a lawn, and it would have taken me 1 to 2 hours to make the same amount of money that I would have made for 8 hours of work.
Dave Ramsey has a very similar story. Ramsey did the same thing. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and then later, when I actually got some of my technical skills as I evolved in college, and I was doing some other things, and even as a teenager, I was setting up people's home offices on the weekend, or I was sitting there and I would scrub somebody's computer for viruses and just sit there and babysit it for an hour or two and make $50, and wait, I'm going to go and I'm going to work an 8-hour shift to get this after taxes or whatever. It's no, it was nonsense. So again, it just didn't snap in my head because everyone around me was doing it. So I was like, oh, well, this is the normal thing and this is how it works. And yay. And okay. And you work your way up and you do all the things, right? And it took me forever to do the math and realize that the traditional model that I was surrounded with wasn't the best model. And that just because everyone was doing it didn't make it a good idea. And I started to realize over a period of time in my life that the goal should never be to fit in with 90% of people. It should be to create yourself into a person of value that ascends to being able to offer value or resources or skills or knowledge that 90% of people don't have. Make yourself the 10%, make yourself the 1%, make yourself the 0.1% if you can, but through your abilities, the value that you create, the substance that you offer, the scarcity of what you offer, your ideas, whatever it is, just to elevate yourself, just to improve yourself, to separate yourself from the majority of people or the lowest common denominator. And so if you elevate your value and you invest in yourself, then your earning potential increases in proportion to that. And what I learned was there's actually 3 main tricks to it, Danny. Do you want to know what they are?
I might already know, but you tell me. Let the people know.
So one of them would be to have access to a resource that most people don't have access to. And this is how companies usually work, is they have access to a resource. Now, back in the day, it used to be the person who could get land, natural resources, the rights to oil or forest or mines, and so usually it was a real natural resource. Now and then later in the industrial, it'd be oh well, do you have access to a piece of machinery that most people don't have? So examples of that would be back in the day, the thing to do back in the day if you really wanted to start a real good hustle was to get yourself access to a silk screen machine or a heat press so that you could make graphic tees, because then you have that and you control that at that point. So that was an example back then. Or in my case, get a camera, and then you have access to something most people don't have. And you also have to have the skills to go with that. So now you have a resource that other people don't have in terms of your machinery or technology that can produce a result that most people can't. So today, a lot of that. That's the first one. Yeah, so that's the first level of it, because it's a tangible thing. Another thing, though, but that's where, like, having the money to invest in that comes in. Here's another one, though. And now, because of the internet, this one doesn't cost money. Secret knowledge. Knowledge that is uncommon. Knowledge, aka skills, knowledge and skills.
That's pretty much what got me on the map.
Exactly. That 90% of people don't have. And that can mean being knowledgeable in a subject matter, be a subject matter expert. You're a subject matter expert, right? It could also be knowledge that then manifests in the form of a skill like video editing, photography, graphic design, programming, coding, marketing, whatever it is, right? So you need, that's usually another thing that people have as an advantage. So your knowledge and skills are an advantage, or the access to a resource that you have could be an advantage over people. And then here is the other one. The other one that is an advantage. The third thing that is an advantage over other people that most people, still don't necessarily have is usually their ideas. Having uncommon ideas. Having the ability to think of something before other people. And so when you have these things, you can rise above the 90% or the 10% of people in the world or in your given field, and you can leverage all of those things to produce results that other people don't have. And when you can produce results that other people don't have, you're paid differently than them. And that's just really what it comes down to. So you have to have that. So you either have the creative ability in terms of your ideas to separate you from people. You have the ability to be a subject matter expert, which can come from knowledge or resource or schooling or training of some kind. Or you have access to a piece of equipment, machinery, or a resource that most people don't have that makes you able to produce a result or makes you able to leverage that resource by giving access to it. Because and another resource could even be something like owning property, having a venue, because then if you have you have the stalls in the barbershop, you rent them out to the other people. That's your resource, is your the fact that you have the ability to facilitate them. So with those things, if you understand that, then what you do is you make your goal having one of these things or all of them as quickly as possible, and then your value increases instantaneously. Your earning potential increases instantaneously. And the good news is the internet has made all of it a lot easier. And it's accessible to all of us for the most part. If you're listening to this podcast, you have access to this.
For sure. Now, some of the fears that I've noticed from people as far as going into business for themselves, I think a lot of them are afraid of sort of not having that cushion of I have a job. But one thing that I've learned is that cushion is an imaginary cushion. It's not there, homie.
There's no job security. There's
none. People need to get that out of their ass. Dude, company can go out of business. The boss might not like you one day and decide to not renew your contract, to let you go.
Industry evaporates overnight.
Or just declines to where they have to downgrade, which happens very frequently.
Oh, what about working for your pension and everything? It's like, then you end up like, the Enron employees and everything. What happened to their pensions?
Well, nobody has pensions anymore, dude. Yeah. Nobody. Like maybe if you're a railroad worker from like back in the day, and then also, what if you get new management and they decide that you're no longer valuable to them? So that's essentially been my career. Not all the time, but it's happened before where I've just lost jobs, for whatever reasons, a bunch of different reasons. Like, for example, that job I told you about, the cable company job, what was happening there was we were PC techs, and then you had cable techs. We were training the cable guys on how to do PC work, because they wanted to downsize us because they felt like we weren't of value to the company anymore. They wanted to save money by having cable guys do PC work. Now, some of the cable guys
basically they wanted to pay people the same amount of money or not much more to do two jobs, and then I have to pay two separate people. Yeah.
Bingo.
Happens all
That's
the time.
Exactly what they wanted to do. Yeah. And so as a result of that, I trained myself out of a job, but I had to do it because I was told to do it. So that happens. So the thing about that is, self-employment can be a risk, but it takes personal responsibility, I think, in order to make it work. One of the silliest things I've ever heard is I had a kid a while back who was like, well, I'm worried that if I make too much money, I'm going to have to pay more taxes. That's how it works, really, buddy.
Well, actually, you only pay on the taxes over the amount of the bracket that you go. You don't immediately start paying proportionately more just by going up into another bracket. It's every dollar after that amount.
No, I know that.
I'm saying they don't know that. People's fears come from this place of being just uneducated about it to begin with. That's not how capitalism even works. That's not even how capitalism works. They're just uneducated.
Not just that. But if I'm a logical thinking person, okay, we're going to use basic numbers. Let's say I'm making $10,000 a year, and the government takes, let's say, 10%. Mm-hmm. I keep 9,000. Nice, 9,000, right? We're using small numbers. Let's say I make $100,000 a year and the government takes 30%, which they won't. It's less than that. But let's say they did. I'm left with $70,000. What's more valuable, $70,000 or $9,000? Are you stupid? Are you a moron? Like, you know what I mean?
70% of the larger number is still the larger number.
It's the larger number, exactly. Yeah, you got to pay more taxes sometimes, but you know.
Look, I mean, people talk all this good stuff. Like I'd still rather make $1 million and give 40% of it to the government than make $250,000 and give less than 40% of it to the government. Like,
exactly.
Because again, I'm still going to have, even if I give 40% of it to the government, I'm still going to have $600,000. It's still more money.
No, for sure, you're going to have. I don't understand the logic behind
that. There's a
that.
ratio at which this just like doesn't make any rational sense for people. Like, I mean, real talk. Now again, but here's something people don't understand actually. To be an entrepreneur, because you absorb all the cost and the risk, and it takes some money at that level to make that kind of money, because you're probably going to have employees.
Possibly, but if you're like one of us, you don't have any.
I do now. Like, and you got editors, you got overhead, you got editors. Like, I mean, and the thing is, it depends on how much of a life you want to have. So there's so like to run a really good business and to scale it, at some point you use other people's time unless you want to go insane and not be able to do it long term. And so with that responsibility, or you could do enough automation, which still is you paying for software, you're using people or you're using robots. It's a system either way. But the people don't like to hear the argument that, and it doesn't matter what spectrum people are on for this, but like people don't like to hear the argument that you could make $500,000 and still be middle class. And it's true. I know people doing this because what they don't account for is like, well, one, if you have like, 7 kids, then
if you have kids, yeah.
If you have 7 kids, yeah, that $500,000 doesn't go that far.
Even 3 kids, man.
Exactly. And then even 2. Like even 1 2. With the cost of childcare in America right now is like $1,200 a month. Like if you wouldn't want your kids to be abused, like it's $1,200 a month. It's like, oh, how can you put a price on your kids, right? And that's not even feeding and clothing them and healthcare today. Oh God, like people like, oh, how can like people be middle class with $400,000? I'm not making that. Blah 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 blah. It's like, well, where do they live? Do they live in New York or California? Because to make more money, you usually have to be in a metropolitan area. Again, unless you're a digital entrepreneur, then maybe you do, maybe you don't. You just have to be where there's fast internet, right? But also, what's the cost and the overhead of that business, and what are the taxes on that business? Because when you're an entrepreneur, whatever you're making, even if it's $500,000, that's not a wage anymore. Like you and I know, that's not a wage anymore. So that's business capital now. So now there's operating cost against the business, there's margins, there's overhead, and there's self-employment taxes, and an employer isn't splitting the Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid taxes with you anymore. You're absorbing that. So if you are an entrepreneur, you absorb all the responsibility, all the tax liability, the business insurance, the health care coverage, the Social Security, the Medicare, the state and federal taxes, and self-employment taxes, and all the cost of filings and all of this stuff that a regular 9-to-5er doesn't deal with. And
I was going to say that you deal with a lot more, but I personally feel like the returns and the freedom, freedom. This is what people don't understand. It's the freedom. I learned this about myself, Roberto. I had to do a lot of introspection about myself. Mm-hmm. It's not that I can't work for somebody else. It's that I don't enjoy doing that, and also I've never been the kind of guy who likes to wake up at 7 a.m., eat breakfast, get dressed, sometimes get dressed like in a lot of clothes because I live in Florida. It's very hot here, and then drive out to an hour to go sit at a cubicle. I've never been a cubicle guy. I hate it. Like cubicles, it's not even like I'm not claustrophobic, but
It's just soul crushing and depressing most of the time, to be real. I did that for a long time.
Yeah, I was in IT for years, and this whole like, you know, most of the time when I've had jobs, I've worked the overnight shift and been happy. Also, my coworkers kind of bring me up. If I have good coworkers that I have rapport with, that I love, that we're friends, it can kind of bring you up and make the job more fun. But
yes,
I've just never been the kind of guy who enjoys just working for somebody else and having to deal with their bullshit. Like I've eaten shit. I've eaten shit a little bit in my life, but the thing about me is I don't eat shit very long. I've told people to fuck off quick, bro. I remember, I'm not going to go into the whole story here, but in 2006, I worked for a financial services company, and this is, you know, they hired a new manager, and the new manager changed the entire structure of the company to where it went from being this kind of fun, laid-back environment to it being this totalitarian fucking thing where we had to stay at our cubicles. She basically changed the entire formula, and people started to quit. And it's like you're losing these good people, not because they're lazy, but because you're enforcing these rules they don't want to follow. But of course, they didn't see it that way, and I was one of those people.
When my manager Julianne left the bookstore, it wasn't very long under the new manager before I quit, because she felt like she wanted to throw her weight around, and I was one of the best employees not only in the store but in the district. I was one of the best sellers in the district, and I knew, and the customers loved me because I was the only person who cared about the manga section and the anime and the comic book section and the sci-fi readers and the history readers. I was the only one who cared about them in the store, and I was one of the only male employees. And so I was like, there were just, and all of the hobby shop stuff, and you know, the Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering cards and Pokemon people. Like I was their guy. You know, I was their guy. So when I left, there were a lot of people that just weren't really in love with the store the same way after I left, and there was a reason. It was because it was new management, and she, you know, this new manager wanted to, I guess, prove herself or something, because she didn't also want to honor the agreement for my paid leave for my vacation for the days that my previous manager had already approved, because she wanted to have the prerogative to make those decisions herself and not honor previous agreements. And like, that's not something that's going to go well with employees, especially employees who've been there for a while, or somebody who's like has an expectation. And I made plans and I put money around this thing. So it's like, so 2 weeks before my vacation, I put in my 2 weeks, because I wasn't going to have her, because she hadn't made a decision yet, and she hadn't, like, she was kind of, I guess, like almost like holding it hostage over me or something. I don't know what her deal was with that, because again, I was bringing in my numbers and everyone loved me, and so
it's got to be like a power pool.
Mm-hmm. My answer to it was I'd take back my own power, because I'm like, it's like at that point I think I was at $8 an hour. I'm like, or $8.50. I'm like, it's an $8.50 an hour job. I'm like, I'll be fine. I'm out 2 weeks.
Well, with my situation, because you jump right into the story, bro. I couldn't even finish my story.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I like your story. With my situation, this bitch, and I'm going to call her that, I was one of the top producers in the company. I was one of the, well, this is the Geekdom101 Podcast, man. This is not going to be on YouTube. This is Libsyn. You can say whatever the fuck you want. So
yeah, no demonetization.
Okay. Right. Fuck it. Well, at this point, who knows? But okay, so here's what happened. So basically, she came in. I was the top producer in the company. I was one of the top producers. I used to go in there and talk about and do the champ is here, dun 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 dun, because I was on fire during that time. And
right on.
Basically, my mom had passed away literally when I worked there. And I came into work. I didn't tell anybody. They found out my mom died. And the other manager said, dude, you have 3 days of bereavement. Go home and take your bereavement time. We'll pay you when you're not here. I was like, okay, cool. This fucking bitch goes, we need you to give us the death certificate first. And the other fucking manager was like, no, we don't. Danny, go home. And I went home. And it was like, what an insensitive cunt. So I come back, and she basically didn't like the fact that I was taking restroom breaks. So in her opinion, or in her mentality, I could not use the restroom unless I was on my 15-minute break. And that's bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. If I gotta fucking go take a shit...
What is this, prison? What is this, prison?
That's the point I'm gonna get to. And this is one thing... I'm getting to a point here. I would have literally cocked over and taken a huge fucking dump right there in the middle of the fucking call center if she really wanted me to do it. Like, it got to the point where she said all these things. She was very rude. And it got to the point where I remember she told me, she's like, you know, if you go to the bathroom and you're not on your break, I'm gonna write you up. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I told myself in my head, I'm done. I am not working here again. So I remember I went home, came to work the next day, got my paycheck because it was payday. No, wait, I'm sorry. I came to work the next day and I worked exactly how she wanted me to. I stayed at my cubicle. I used the bathroom only during my breaks. It was hard, but I did it. Next day was payday. Came in around noon, got my paycheck, walked out, never came back. No call, no show. Or I'm sorry, it was a no call, no show. No 2-week notice. No fucking talking to the boss. I told one of my coworkers, I said, listen, here's what I want you to do. Tonight, I'm not coming in. I told her that. She goes, okay. I'm like, tell them that I quit and I'm never coming back. And that's it. And I no call, no showed them. I told them to fuck off and I quit. I left the fucking company. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it one bit. Because if you're going to treat people like that, you don't deserve me, motherfucker. You don't deserve me because I'm making money for your company. I was a top producer in that company, yo. I was a top producer.
Let's actually use that as a jumping off point.
Well, wait. I was going to make one more point. One thing I learned about myself during that time is I can't stand micromanagement. I cannot do it, and that's why I like what I do now. I do not like micromanagement.
Okay, so that's actually a perfect transition. So what is your thoughts on the fact that a lot of YouTube content creators believe that they're employees and that YouTube owes them, some more acknowledgement, some more treatment? They feel disrespected.
Well, I do feel like we produce. No, I think we do produce for them, dude. But
we're not employees.
I know that's the problem. We're independent contractors. I'm with you, man. But I mean, at the same time, I do think YouTube should improve their platform whenever they can.
Well, I agree with that, but I don't think. Do you think YouTube doesn't think they should improve their platform, or is it trying to improve their platform?
I think they do. I think people give them a bad rep, but I do think also, Roberto, that they make unnecessary changes. I honestly feel that way.
But what would be an unnecessary change?
Well, okay. And you won't agree with me on this, but I don't like the new what do you call it? The new Creator Studio. I'm not a fan of it. There are things that I like about it. There are things that I think are good about it. The interface is bullshit. The interface is garbage to me.
That's more of a subjective
It is, but it's my opinion.
Sure,
also,
sure.
The notifications have been broken.
But I wouldn't say that's an unnecessary change because something you have to take into consideration is there's a lot of deprecated features that are still in the old one, and they couldn't get us the new data. So the new data, because I know you love the click-through rate data. They need the new one to make all of that work. And so the old one's just kind of clunky because they built it. They built the old one over 10 years ago. You can't just today. You can't use any software from 10 years ago, dude.
No. I agree with you on that. I don't hate YouTube. I'm not going to that.
No, I know you're not, but I want to actually run through some of the what's an unnecessary change because I hear it from people all the time, and I know you hear it from the community. So I want to hear some of these things because again,
also
I feel like play devil's advocate.
The bell is bullshit. I think if somebody subscribes, they should get notified of the videos. I don't like this whole notifying subs at every few hours. It's supposed to be boom notification. I don't like that concept.
So I know so it's actually worse than that one's worse than people think, and I think I told you about that, and that everyone didn't get opt in, but I told you why. And we may or may not get into that for the viewers, for the listeners. But basically, users cause more problems than they think they do, but it's not their fault. But it's an unintended consequence because. So do you know what happened with why they had to why they figured that the notification system would be a benefit? And initially it kind of was, but not quite the way they thought it would be. And then they overemphasized it in the algorithm later, and it became a problem because they got false positives because it was working for larger channels and they didn't think about mid-tier channels.
Right.
And that's sometimes a problem because sometimes they skew their decisions and data off of the top and off of the bottom, and the middle gets screwed, But here's the thing: for brand new content creators, that notification system is golden for them, and it actually works out really well for new channels versus old channels, because old channels didn't have all their viewers opted in, and people are like, well, why wouldn't they do that? Because the problem is users have this bad habit of subscribing to channels and then not following up or not thinking it through and not prioritizing. And so you have, especially young people have like kind of, young people dominate the platform and they kind of screwed it up because now we're making a platform for people that are like 13 years old, right? And that's the problem. And that's where all the problems really come from. But you can't say that because then people get mad, you know? But it's the truth. Because
it's the truth.
It's the truth. Because here's what happened, Danny. You have these people subscribed to like 1,500 channels, you know, and YouTube can't prioritize the distribution, and that was causing all these bottlenecks and other problems in system stability. So that's where a notification system to prioritize things comes into play. Because especially when content creators started all figuring out and trying to gamify uploading at the same times a day and stuff like that, like it just causes this massive bottleneck. And so they had to adjust and tier the distribution system and do kind of like a rollout for the alerts. Because otherwise, with that much traffic and that many videos being uploaded and that many users, just like the infrastructure can't take that kind of stress because it's just too massive of a platform at this point. So it's one of those, I mean, you've worked in IT, so you have a better sympathy for this kind of problem.
Right, I definitely do.
And so it's just, we're living in an unprecedented time where they built something that never existed, and so solving a problem for something that never existed is actually really, really difficult. So when people say, oh, they should make it better, it's like, believe me, I know they're trying, but I think just keeping it up and running is like a freaking Herculean level, like, you know, God tier feat as it is, just for what we're talking about. Because I have a hard time when I think about these numbers. It's just boggling my mind. Like my brain shuts down when I think about 500 hours of content uploaded every minute of every day. And it's up, by the way. It used to be 300, then 400. Now it's 500 hours every minute of every day. I'm like, what the fuck are people uploading? Like, how? Like, and it's just that big. And it's like, it's just like my brain turns to mush thinking about it. So like that's where that problem came from, is like it's the problem of there are too many users, but also because the platform skews so young, we can't trust some of the user inputs anymore. Because remember, when we came to YouTube, it was like you had to have access to a computer, so that kind of like, because it wasn't a mobile platform at the time, so that kind of like narrowed, you know, it wasn't that big at the time. Then it wasn't popular until you could make money, you know?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I don't disagree with you that I sympathize for the people working at Google, but I do think that the subscription feed thing, like we talked about, notifications were never broken to begin with, and that does piss me off. Now, I do credit them.
That was broken because, I mean, it was broken when they started relying on that to determine the view velocity for how quickly.
Right. That's not fair. That's not fair to us. Like you want to fuck over how the subs get the videos, but you don't want to. But you want to sit there and gauge our success on that. That just makes the bigger channels bigger and the smaller channels smaller. You know, that's bullshit.
It doesn't because there's a. So the thing is, it resets every so often, so it's not set in stone. So people don't realize that. And then it's also at an individual channel level, and now it's at an individual audience viewer kind of level. So it's actually becoming more organic and it's learning. And my buddy John Prosser, he had an issue with this where he actually became a victim of his own success, actually, because he had a couple of videos blow up and go viral. So then like his threshold got higher. And so for a while he was like screwed for a couple of months until it leveled back out again. You know, because now the algorithm expected him to get this many views this quickly, and it's like, oh no, the topic is not that, because everything with YouTube is topic driven now for that reason. But here's why they did it. They did it because they were trying to figure out user behavior, because for user behavior, they're using what's called basically crowdsourced vetting. So basically the audience is deciding the algorithm at this point, right? Here's the problem with the audience deciding the algorithm, Danny. It's the problem of the fact that because who has the most disposable time in the world?
Kids.
Ding, 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 ding. That's what drives the algorithm now, regardless of what.
But it's trash though, because
I agree.
When you try to expand outside of what your niche is, you don't get,
I know.
You ain't going to get pushed. So how are we supposed to grow our business and be creative creators? I have to stick to talking about Dragon Ball on my main channel. That's not fair.
I agree with you, but no systems are built. No system, like, let's set YouTube aside for a minute. Name one system that you interact with on a daily basis that you would say is fair.
Wait, say it again?
Let's set YouTube aside. Mm-hmm. Think about one system in society and in your life or anything that you use. Name me one system that you would call fair.
I don't even know how to answer that question.
Because, again, there's no system. There's no mathematical system that we would call fair. There's no system that we use that we would call...
Yeah, because everybody's opinion of fairness is different. That is a good point. That's a very good point.
So there's nothing... Because the irony is, it's like... Because what people use the word fair when they refer to YouTube, but what they're really thinking of is this larger word called egalitarian. They want it to feel equitable. They want it to feel like everyone has a fully... Because it's not, they don't want meritocracy, because that's actually close to what we have. It's just that we don't agree on the form that it takes because it is skewed in favor of demand. But it's demand, but a certain group drives the demand, but they have the numbers. You know what I mean? They are the majority. So you could say that that's meritocracy. We just don't fully agree with it because we don't like, well, that audience isn't, as valuable to us, or we don't think, or like, yeah, they might be the biggest numbers, but that's not really representative of the culture of the platform. But who gets to decide that? You know, primary example, Americans, we're actually only about 45% tops. I think English speaking countries are only actually 45% of YouTube traffic. It's 60. It's like 60 or plus, or 55% more, or close to 60. I think international non-English. So are they, because they're the majority, is that the culture of YouTube? Like, who gets to decide what YouTube is when it's 2 billion monthly logged in users? Like, What would be fair? Like, that's the math. The math says that the closest thing they could do is just have a cold, ruthless, numbers-driven thing, and it's never going to feel fair to everybody. It's going to feel fair when you're winning, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
but at the same time, though, you also have to take personal responsibility. Like, if one of my videos doesn't blow up, it is a bummer, especially if I worked really hard on it. It pisses me off. But the one thing that I've never done is blame the audience. I don't ever blame the audience.
But you don't blame other creators.
Disney.
But you don't blame other creators.
Hell no. I either blame myself for not producing the video that I want to produce, or I blame the algorithm. And the way I check that is with likes and dislikes, because most of my videos, actually no, all of my videos have more likes than dislikes, and the ratio's obviously above 90% for almost everything I put out. So I feel like...
So then there's the distribution thing, and I'll tell you...
Distribution, yeah.
And I'll tell you...
So I have to take time to promote the video harder, which is okay, but, you know...
Yeah, but it's like, yeah. But that's good. But that's good that you take that responsibility, which is better than most people. But here's another thing, Danny, and you and I have talked about this, because, again, I taught you a lot about certain things that I've seen in YouTube that you've been able to make your own and take advantage of. And... But one of the things you and I always talked about after we saw the shift in the algorithm was how much the topic itself and the demand for the topic itself drives everything, and how easy that is to play. But then that the other role is then the timing. So you have to get the topic itself right, where the attention exists, because you can't get people excited about something that they're not excited about. You have to already tap into where an emotion exists. You know what I mean? Or you have to manipulate that in some way. You have to convey, like, you know, and then the title is a big part of that, because it's like the more exciting title will win. The more exciting title will win. Not necessarily the most accurate title, not necessarily the most clear title, but the easiest to understand and most emotionally compelling title will win. But the other factor is timing. Timing is everything. And the timing is what screws most people over. For sure. Because I'm done with it. I just want to get it out. And sometimes, and that's not even always YouTube's fault, because if you don't think about the fact that, well, wait, 60% of the audience is asleep right now, this isn't going to perform as well as it could, because my window...
Oh, dude, real quick, Black and Fist, another Dragon Ball YouTuber, he interviewed Bruce Faulconer, and we all told him, like, the whole Dragon Ball YouTuber clique, myself, Rhymestyle, we're like, okay, look, when you're going to upload the video, let us know an hour ahead of time, and then we'll promote it for you. Like, we're going to all promote it for him. This motherfucker uploads it at 3 in the morning because he finished. Listen, dude, Juan is such a frustrating person. God bless him. I love him, but he's so frustrating. He uploads it at 3 a.m, and I'm just like, Juan, we told you were going to get promotion from 7 different YouTubers if you told us ahead of time what time you were going to upload the video. And he just uploaded it. Well, Danny, I finished it and I want to get it out. I'm like, no, dude, at 3 a.m, dude. At 3 a.m.
Who's up at 3 a.m. for Dragon Ball?
The only time, dude, the only time I ever did videos that late is if it was breaking news. That's the only time.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's no point. And that's because Japan's on the other side of the world. But but you're right. It's about patience and timing. I've said that before, man. Life is about timing. Life is about, I'm gonna hit you with one right now. Life is about leverage and timing, because leverage has a lot to do with it as well. And the thing is, this whole podcast is supposed to be about inspiring people to be entrepreneurs. And I hope that they're not listening to this and thinking that, these guys are complaining and it's hard. It is hard, and nothing in life is easy.
We're trying to paint the reality, because here's my issue, Danny.
Yeah, nothing's easy in life.
Entrepreneurship, and YouTube especially, as a pathway to entrepreneurship, has been over-glorified and over-glamorized. And that's not to say you shouldn't become one, you shouldn't strive. But I never want someone to think that they were lied to, and that somebody, especially those of us who people like to call quote-unquote gurus, and I've never liked that word. I hate that word. I despise that fucking word so much. Right?
Me too.
But I get lumped into that guru community. I get lumped into that guru community all the time, right? But
have you called yourself that before, haven't you?
No, I haven't. That's the thing about it.
Oh, and I've only done it with the air quotes.
I've only ever done it with air quotes, and only as a pejorative because of the word other people use, because I don't think of it that way and I don't like it. Because I've always called myself an entrepreneur, a creative entrepreneur, an online educator, a mentor. I've never liked the word or used the word guru outside of using it as a slang joke, to make fun of it.
Right.
But I also don't have any offense to people in that community either. And some of them are friends and everything. And some of them, they hate the title too. They just everyone knows it. So we go with and I'm like, really? Can't we just not do that? Can we not just go with what people want for once? But whatever. Right. So what I'm getting at is, there, of all people, because, I have coaching and courses and memberships and stuff like that. Of all people, you would think I'd be raw cheerleading people nonstop and cheerleading them and selling them the dream. When ironically, all I do is tell people how hard it is. All because I want them to know that there was at least one person who never ever lied to them and tried to tell them that this shit is easy just because it's accessible to them.
Right. But you know what? Yeah. You know, Roberto, it's easier than it used to be. Anybody can open up a YouTube channel. It's free to do that, and anybody can earn monetization within the time span it takes for them to do it and become a success if they work hard at it. If they're creative enough, and if they get lucky, because there is a little bit of luck there. I'm not going to say there's no luck. There's a little bit of luck.
I would refer to luck
and timing
in this context as timing, because for me, luck, I interpret luck as the variables beyond your control. And the thing is, there are very few, to a point, there are very few variables that you can't control in terms of the success of YouTube. And the one thing I'll say about that is, the reason I don't like people setting subscriber goals in particular, or goals for how many views they want, is because of the things that are out of their control. Because I always believe the thing you can control is the work ethic and the quality of the work. I believe you can control quality, and quantity,
you said,
and value. Yeah,
you said a long time ago. You said something like, if God, I think you said something like, if God came down from heaven and said, I promise you 100,000 subs if you produce 100 videos, would you do it? Something to the effect of that. If
something
you were guaranteed.
That, yeah. It was, I said it for $1 million, and I said it for 1 million subs. It was like if God came down and promised you that if you did 1,000 videos, you would get 1 million subscribers. But if you miss an upload, if God said it was 1,000 videos, but it's daily, and if you miss one, you start over. Are you gonna follow through, or do you get 1 million subscribers? That's why I said
a lot of people are not following through, man. And you know what? That's okay, because that's their choice.
And that's fair. And by the way, you may not be in that situation now. And that's the other thing. I want people to realistically realize that maybe they're in a time in their life where they should be a hobby creator, and they should enjoy it, and they should find their voice and find their style and not worry about growth. Because again, it's funny. I like people like I don't know how often I think I might have said this on a podcast with you once or something, or I don't know if I've said this publicly. People don't understand. And we never told them. I have like 420,000 subscribers on YouTube, right? And again, the views aren't what people would expect because they're watching entertainment channels. They don't realize that the entrepreneurship and the business niche is different. So they're going to think that means you should get X amount of views per upload. So two things on that. What they don't know is that in 2015, the YouTube algorithm completely changed and subscribers became irrelevant, and there are a lot of YouTubers who still click.
Well, it's nice to have a
it's social proof,
play button.
And it's social proof, and it's nice to have a play button. But algorithmically, you and I both know, algorithmically, YouTube made subscriber counts algorithmically irrelevant to views after about 2015, 2016.
Forever ago.
2015, 2016.
Yeah.
And they changed the YouTube homepage because your subscription feed isn't even on the homepage anymore, and they changed that in like 2016. And everyone got mad. Like Keemstar and Philip DeFranco and PewDiePie all covered it like in 2016 when it happened. They're like, why are you doing this? And then they wanted to try to mess with the sub feed and make that algorithmic too. And then people were like, oh, hell no.
I agree with that. It's bullshit.
Yeah, so like leave us the one thing, not that anyone uses the sub feed anymore. But
I do.
Well, that's fair.
I still use it.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, some diehards still use it. But
yeah, I use it because it's just easier for me to find what I need to find.
Exactly. So, and I do sometimes. But like most of the audience doesn't. And so, except for OGs. Because most people, a lot of people, new people to the platform as users and viewers don't even know really what it is or don't bother with it. Like
they just, exactly. Whatever's on their homepage.
Their homepage. Yep. But YouTube did experiments to realize that most people were just using their homepage. And a lot of things, people think trending matters. Trending actually kills your videos. So there's a couple of weird like YouTube things I wanted to give for context. But here's the thing. I got to 400,000 subscribers, Danny, and I did like 1,300 videos to get there over the years. But what people don't realize is that my goal was never to grow my YouTube channel. It was always to grow my own personal brand, my name, and my business.
Yeah, you're coaching. I remember that. And same thing with I forgot his name now. Schmoyer.
Yeah,
Schmoyer was he doesn't even get views, but he sells books and courses, and that's where he gets his income. And whenever you have a moron, I'm going to call him that, a moron who looks at your sub count or your view count and laughs at you. It's like, you have no idea how much money I have. And I deal with it too, and I have a lot of subs and views. But then people actually, Roberto,
our CPMs are really good, and they don't realize.
I've seen your CPM, bro. You scare the fuck out of me with that. But look, here's the thing. When Dragon Ball Super ended in March of 2018, I had so many haters tell me, ha, 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 you're going to have to get a real job now, ha, ha, ha. First of all, I have an engineering degree. So my, quote, real job is already more valuable than any of the bullshit that they do for a living. Because people like that aren't successful. People who say those kind of things are miserable.
Well, people who take joy in the misfortune of others usually have a lower...
Because they want to bring me down to their level, and it's not going to happen. That's number one.
Right. But there's usually, I forgot what the psychological term was for a person who takes
a pussy.
Joy in the misfortune of others.
That's called a pussy.
Well, there's a psychological term, but it's usually indicative of a lower IQ is what I was going at. It's usually low IQ people that take joy in the misery of others. And they've scientifically proven that. They've it's an actual
I'm gonna make a speak to about
is
that.
tied to low IQ.
About that. But so people were saying that to me, like, you have to get a real. First of all, if I have to get a real job, I have an engineering degree. I'm gonna make more money than you anyways. Number two, I had at that time when Super ended, I had $300,000 in the bank. Maybe I shouldn't say that on this podcast, but I don't give a fuck. I had a lot of money saved up.
And you own your house.
Well, that money did go to my house. A lot of that money did go to my house. And then number three, it's like who the fuck, it was just so funny to me, like this idea that, well, now you have to get a real job. Like, no, I don't. And here we are 2 years later, and I'm still doing this for a living, and I'm still earning six figures, and I'm still, like, it's ridiculous.
And your second channel's doing well, too. Your second channel
it's doing okay.
Is earning money that would be, it's like, it may not be, like, super comfortable money for you, but it would be somebody's salary. It'd be a normal person in America's salary on your second channel.
No,
that's not even as big.
For sure, and I'm not in any way...
You're about to get a silver play button on that channel, too, aren't you?
I hope so. That channel... I'm at 64. I'm at 65,000. It'll be a little while.
Yeah, 2020, you'll get get it. 2020, you'll get it.
I hope. We'll see. But like, so my thing is like they're trying to drag me down to their level, and you know, it's like, but they have no idea. Like, they don't know. They'll sit there and they have no idea how much money we actually make. Now, case in point, there is also the inverse of that. I know channels, and I'm not going to say their names, that destroy me in views and subs, and they make less money than I do. I know a couple of
the same.
massive
I'll tell people.
channels.
There are so many articles that I've read, and also creators I've talked to, and there's also videos out on YouTube where people have straight up shown you their AdSense and disclosed their earners. I've made videos where I just showed up, here you go, here you can see it. You're not going to see what's in my real bank account from all the courses, the coaching, blah, blah, blah.
Right,
like,
the sponsorships, all that stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll show a little bit of that just to show that, because, you know, as an entrepreneur, I always say people, look, I'm not a millionaire, but I make over 6 figures, so I'm just going to show you the PayPal yearly and just show you, because I know people make outrageous claims. I understand that there are people out there who are frauds, who make outrageous claims, whatever.
And you're not
really
trying
care.
to brag. You're trying to inspire them and teach them.
And I'm also trying to, you now are forced, because of how, even though it's not that many people, but because of the handful of frauds out there, you're forced to prove your legitimacy when you make a claim about something like, hey, it's possible to earn 6 figures doing this. You then, oh, show us the receipts. The kids are all about these show us the receipts thing and regular. So again, I'll just flash something on the screen every now and again, not because I want to show off or brag. I actually hate that kind of thing.
Me too.
But you're put in a position these days where you're always constantly forced to prove yourself to people, or you're a liar.
Yep.
And you're never given the benefit of the doubt. And people can't just listen to what you say and ask themselves, geez, does that make sense? Because if it makes sense, then it makes sense. Because, I mean, most people, I don't think people can be tricked that easily. So I like to believe that people have a little bit of sense or could do their own research. But people are so lazy that they don't want to do that. So you're forced to present it to them. And so that's fine. I just do it for that purpose. But I'm making the point that I learned something in my late 20s, early 30s that if I had known it in my early 20s, if I had had a mentor, if I'd had a role model, if I'd had somebody to show me this, it would have meant the world to me, because it would have changed my entire life, and I wouldn't have spent so much time being frustrated and miserable and poor, frankly, if I had just had somebody to show me what was possible, because I had no idea what I had. I had no idea how much my talent was worth. I had no idea how much my time and my value was worth. And you know what? No one wanted to tell me, because they could take advantage of me if I didn't know. They could take advantage of me. I had no leverage. I didn't know any better. And so I got taken advantage of. I got underpriced. I got undersold. And if I had known what I should be charging for what I can do, if I had known how much money could be made, if I had known what the stakes were, I would have been more armed and more educated and better able to defend myself, Danny. And that's all I really want for people when I make my content. And so, yeah, I teach people how to do this. And again, but I also don't want them to be misled. I want them to know that somebody's out here trying to be transparent and trying to tell them the truth. And again, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it because there's a younger version of me out there. You know, I'm doing it for myself. I feel like I'm a good person, but I'm like, when I say that, like, don't mistake this for being altruism, I'm talking about the chip I have on my shoulder, Danny. I'm talking about the fact that I'm like, why didn't I know this? Like, because, I mean, again, if I could be like Biff Tannen, Back to the Future, just hand myself a playbook, I would. But I can't. So I might as well give it to other people, because, you know, somebody like me is out there. You know, so I'm doing it for that. I'm going back. You know, I'm doubling back for the misfits and the quote-unquote people like me who thought they were losers, but they just didn't know what they had.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm the same way. I mean, I've been accused of being a dick. And it's like, well, no, I'm not a dick. You're just a pussy. And that's the way, you know, we're both genitals here. But the reason why I say that's because I do give tough love. And maybe I do cross the line sometimes. But like I told you earlier on this whole recording, I have a low tolerance for bullshit. And if somebody's whining and bitching and moaning about something, you know, that I think they can fix in 2 minutes, it does annoy me. You know, and obviously I'm empathetic to it, because I've had a lot of pain in my life. And I complain a lot sometimes. But it's like there are issues that can be resolved if you just, just do it. Or there's information that can be found if you just do it. That's always been kind of my mentality on that.
That's my thing is now a lot of the excuses are off the table. Not all of them. And there are circumstances in life that aren't excuses. I say it all the time. But I also know people who have it worse. I know people with disabilities. I know people with mental health issues that like are outworking a lot of people who who are complaining. And so there's always someone with it worse, and a lot of them are like going to outwork you, and you're going to say, well, what? And then what's your excuse then, right? But I do get it, and I get that things are hard, and that people have hard lives, and sometimes they feel like when we say things that maybe we don't understand, or we're being abusive, or it's the hustle rhetoric, and I can understand why people find it distasteful. But what we're really trying to tell people is that work ethic really matters a lot, and self-awareness matters a lot. To know what you're good at. Because like I said, if you have the audacity to dream big, if you have the audacity to dream big, you're going to have to recognize that your contributions and sacrifices are also going to have to be pretty effing big.
Yeah, I was going to tell you a story about that real quick, a short one. There was this guy, sure. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but he wanted some coaching, and I go to his channel, and I'm like looking at it, and I mentioned your name, and he told me that he loves you, I love that guy, and I'm like, do you watch Roberto Blake's content? And the answer is probably not, because the thumbnails were whack. He's covering a topic that 100 other people cover, and I had to explain to him, like, look, if you're going to be covering things that bigger channels cover, you need to do it in a way that makes you stand out, or in a very unique way, or in a more creative way, or just don't do it. You gotta
be known for something.
Yeah, or just don't do it. You know, if there's 10,000 channels that are covering...
What's the type of channel? Because I can give everyone some advice to this.
I don't want to give it away.
You won't give... Don't give them away. Just give me the general, like, is it anime?
It's Dokkan. It's Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle. And I was telling him, like, and I'm like, dude, your titles are whack. Your thumbnails are whack. Like, no one's going to click on this. Like, you have to think. And this guy is not young, by the way, Roberto. He's actually older than we are.
So
and I'm like,
in something like that, you have to pull the best screenshot and use that as part of the thumbnail. So that's part of it.
Well, it was more so, look, it was just to kind of tell you what was going on. What bothered me is, I told him, you have to improve on these things. And I told him the concepts behind YouTube is people have to want to watch you. And the guy is funny, but he's not really, I don't think he's hitting his full potential when it comes to his comedy. But at the same time, like, his channel's so, just very run-of-the-mill, just cheap thumbnails, cheap content.
It's got to visually stand out to fight for the attention, because you and I know that there's... Right. You have to fight for every damn click. It doesn't even matter how big you get, because everything's topic-driven now, and everything's attention-driven now. So anyone listening to this, if you want to be a YouTuber, look, I'll tell you guys the quick and dirty 3-minute secret spiel on how to be a successful YouTuber, and you can take it with a grain of salt. If you don't want to believe me, you don't. But I also leverage this, like, one little small flex and everything like that. I've been to YouTube HQ. I've talked to YouTube employees, and also I'll tell you something. It's not one algorithm. Every single traffic source on YouTube has an algorithm. I could write a book of everything I know about YouTube, and then people would be like, well, if you're so smart, why don't you have 10 million subscribers? It's like, because there's also a simple, like, truth to the topic you want to cover. If you want to if you want a bunch of subscribers, there has to be a big audience for that.
Correct.
Multi-millionaires on YouTube, some of them don't have the subscriber count I have or the view counts I have, and even people with 1 million subscribers, some of them get less views than me.
I know a channel who's way bigger than me, who makes significantly less money than I do. And people have compared me to him, and there's another guy, same thing, and I just laugh. It's like, you have no idea what the fuck's going on. You don't know anything.
And the thing is, all of us in our individual niches, a lot of us get together and we talk and we share information and we know the real numbers and everything like that. The other people don't. Like, and we know. You've seen my numbers. I've seen your numbers. Like, we know. Like, we know the truth.
Yeah, and it's not even about bragging. It's more so, like, trying to tell people that you don't know what the fuck. You don't know. You don't know. If you're not in the sphere, you don't have any idea.
If you're not in an industry, if you're not in any industry, then you may not understand or appreciate how things work behind closed doors. That's just the way it is. That's what every industry. Like, that's why a lot of people don't know. Like, a lot of people say stuff about YouTube, but they never worked in IT or development. They don't know. They've never coded. They don't know how hard that stuff is. So you don't know what you don't know, and that's fine. But if you don't know what you don't know, probably best not to assume.
Correct, but people are stupid nowadays. Now, the thing is about, this guy.
Oh, let me tell them the quick and dirty on.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up here. We'll wrap it up here in a second.
Sure. And then, and thank you so much. But here's the quick and dirty, just to give your audience some real dope value. Is like, first of all, you might need if you want to go big, you might need a niche where there's a lot of people, because if you get into the weeds or certain topics, let's just be real. There's no Dragon Ball channel. There's no anime channel with 10 million subs, is there, Danny?
No. Nope.
So there's a market cap, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get to 10
we
million
don't know
on
what the
anime
cap
right
actually is, but there is a
now.
cap.
Not yet, but we've seen other genres of YouTube go to 10 million and beyond. Anime hasn't even come close.
Correct. Yeah, no, and that's funny because I remember a few years ago, I had a discussion with another YouTuber, and he was telling me that, well, we'll never get bigger than For Never World, and both he and I passed For Never World because he thought that the niche was that he had pretty much gotten every anime fan. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way, bro. Some people just don't like his opinion. Some people just are new to YouTube. And that's the thing. There's always new people coming into YouTube. Always new people every day.
And the thing is, the ceiling can change too, because there was a point on YouTube, period, where no one could get past 2 million until Ryan Higa did it. And then Epic Mealtime did it. And so, and now we're like,
that was a while back.
Yeah, but for a long time, but for years, there was a ceiling.
Right.
There was a ceiling. It was almost impossible to break 1 million for a couple of years. But so it depends. And then there's also things with the niche. In the photography niche, no channel could break as a solo channel, because there was a company that did it as a media company, but no channel in the photography niche could break 1 million until Peter McKinnon did it, and he's at 4 million now. Sometimes it takes someone to punch through that's different, that can get new people into the genre. That's the thing.
Right.
Because Peter McKinnon wasn't a pretentious wedding photographer, no offense to anybody. He wasn't suit and tie kind of guy. He looked like a real dude, and he was an artist. He was the only YouTube photographer that was mad tatted up or whatever, and just got regular people excited to say, damn, I just want to pick up a camera, right? And so he could get regular people into the genre, and so that exploded everybody, because now there was just more people into this now. Because he brought new people with him as his star rose, so did the community. Kind of like how all the Dragon Ball channels started to rise when Super came to the to the forefront.
Yeah, and not
so
just
there's
that,
always
but also Star
an outside.
Wars.
There can be same thing with Star Wars.
Yeah.
There can be an outside catalyst. Star Wars channels were only so big for a while, and
until
now
Disney bought it and rebooted the franchise. Now everybody blew up.
Yeah. And there's now multiple types of Star Wars channels.
Yeah.
There's whole sub-genres now.
Yeah, same thing with Dragon Ball. There's gaming channels, Dokkan
power
channels.
Scaling.
There's literally everything. It's crazy.
Yeah. So you have to understand that so the niche limits your potential to some extent. And then your specialty could affect that as well, because now that there's a niche, sure, but what are you good at, and what's your interest, and what are you passionate about, and how big can that go, or how big can you make that? Can you be the person that's now the rising star of that? And so you need something to be known for and to stand out. But to get views are driven by clicks, and we don't click on things we don't care about. So your clicks are down to, well, what do people value, or what do they get? You have to understand, I'm not going to click on a video that I don't care about. I'm not going to click on a topic that I don't care about. That's it. If I don't care about it, I ain't clicking. So it doesn't matter how good your content is if I don't care. So you have to understand that you have to get people excited about it with the title, the thumbnail. You have to have good timing. You have to have the right topic. If I'm excluded from that, I ain't clicking. So it might have to be broad enough, or it might have to be super interesting. So you have to really think about getting that title and thumbnail and topic and timing right. Even before you think about, well, my content's the best content, it doesn't matter to people who aren't interested, because they'll never watch it anyway. So it doesn't even matter how good it is in quality at that point. But then you do need quality, because I won't stay on it long enough to matter for the algorithm and to watch any more videos from you if it's not good. I'm not going to watch anymore. You're dead to me. I'm not going to click from you again, even if you show up in my feed over and over. I'm not going to click anymore, and YouTube cares about that too. Is out of everybody, how many times do you get clicked versus somebody else? That matters too. Not just your clicks, but your clicks compared to the other types of videos like yours. And then, can you get people to watch more videos from you in that same session? Can you keep them on YouTube? Can you keep them watching more videos? If you can get the people to click, and you can get people to watch your videos for a long time, and you can get them to watch repeat videos from you, then you can be successful in YouTube if you just focused on those 3 things. But to do those 3 things, you got to be really good at picking the right topics, the right titles, thumbnails, have good timing, and not do anything halfway. And then you got to make really good, badass content that gets people to watch for minutes at a time and lose track of their time. You got to take up as much of their day as you can. And then you got to get them to keep clicking on your stuff as much as possible. And if you focused on just those 3 things, and guess what? Mr. Beast told me this himself. He confirmed this. I've been saying this for years, but he confirmed it. It was his whole presentation at Vid Summit. And I talked to him about it, and we've like had some DM chats about this, about how this system works. And it's really, he focuses on just these 3 things. He focuses on getting as many clicks as he can, keeping them watching with his editing style and with the content itself, and then getting them to watch as many of his videos and binge watch them as they can. So he makes series. He makes these different types of series. And so that's what worked for him, and that's what blew him up. He said once he figured out that rhythm, because before he used to make random videos, and then he figured out a pattern, and he took advantage of a pattern. And I told you back in the day, take advantage of patterns. Pattern recognition is everything. So like literally, if people want to be successful on YouTube, knowing that is half the battle. But if your execution sucks, you can't be a 3 out of 10 at this stuff, and just because you know how it works, you can't be a 3 out of 10 at it.
Right. Well, what I was going to tell you about,
what I was going to tell you about
the guy who I was coaching, like actually the point I was going to make with that is, when I saw his channel, I was just like, okay, you need some work, but also I feel like, and goes back to me kind of not taking any bullshit. I didn't tell him this, but I was like, dude, you need a little bit more self-awareness. Like, if you look at this channel, right, it doesn't look professional. Like, when you look at a successful YouTube channel, whether it be, and when I say successful, I mean one that people do full time, whether it be myself, yourself, and it doesn't even have to be 1 million subs. It could be Seth the programmer.
No, it doesn't. You can, if you have it right, if you got it set up right.
Yeah,
if it's making
exactly.
the money.
You don't have to be PewDiePie. But like, when you look at a successful channel, there's a certain way that they have things organized. There's a certain way that they have certain patterns, like you said, thumbnails that are kind of similar. Like, for example, in your thumbnails, you have your face and your top, and from your waist up, certain, and green backgrounds, white. Like, there's certain looks. Like, when you see a successful channel, you know it's successful. And when you see one that's not successful, but it has that look, you know it's gonna be successful. And most of the time it is. There's a certain way to do it, But, and I'm just like, dude, look at your channel. Like, your titles are shit. Your thumbnails are shit. How can you possibly sit there and say you want to be a successful YouTuber and do it full time and make money when you're not even doing or emulating what other people are doing? Now, I'm against copying other people, but it's not about copying them. It's about emulating.
It's about a standard. It's about understanding where the bar, it's not about even competing, but it's about understanding where the bar is. It's about using it to push yourself further. It's just like Dragon Ball, man. It's just like knowing, like, okay, all right, I see where the ceiling is. I see where my ceiling is. I know what I need to break through. I see what that kind of level of power looks like, and now I'm inspired. I'm like, I'm going to try that technique and see if it works for me or not. Like, it's just like Dragon Ball. Like, it really is. I tell people, martial arts is to some extent mimicry, right? It's largely the foundation of it is mimicking behavior and what you've seen, and then repetition. Don't
copy another YouTuber, like, because if you do, it's going to piss them off, because I hate when people copy me. I hate it
understand,
so much. But understand the value.
What the standards. Understand that there are standards. Like, because again, I'm not talking about copying. I know you're not, like, but it's standards, right? It's best practices.
Quality.
It's best practices. It's like, and it's like, but again, it's knowing where the bar is. And so part of it is, I would tell someone to look at a channel like yours or any other successful channel in their niche and say, what's the gap between my X and their X? Like, what's the gap? Like, okay, scale, if like, all right, this is a successful channel. I'm going to consider their thumbnails a 10. What are mine, and what would I have to change? It's not about making a thumbnail like theirs. It's like making something that if those things stand together, they could compete.
At least, at least something that pops out, without being like bad clickbait. Don't bullshit the people.
Make it a hard choice between clicking on Geekdom's video and clicking on your video. Like, figure out what the gap is between that, and what would that look like for you is like, how do I make it a real hard choice for someone to decide whether to click on that Geekdom video or to click on my video? How do I make that a really hard choice for them? And there's a lot of different methods to get there. There's a lot of different methods to get there. But you got to be willing to do that kind of level of work. You have to say, what would make me competitive with, like, Geekdom or Masako or whoever? Like, what would make me really be a hard choice? If someone has, like, I've got 10 minutes to kill, and I've got to pick one of these 3 videos, what makes them click on your video?
Right. There has to be something. Title, thumbnail, or topic. Those 3 things. The 3 T's. Title, thumbnail, and topic. And sometimes I'll put,
and then there's timing, and then there's timing.
And timing. Thank you so much. The 4 T's, and you have to also. The thing with me, just YouTube specifically, is there's videos that I put out that I know are not going to do that well, but it's okay because it's a fun topic. I had a good time doing it, and sometimes it'll add credibility to me. Like, for example, my voice actor interviews, they don't do that well view-wise, and that's okay because it adds credibility. I can actually go out there and punk any motherfucker out who wants to try me and say, well, guess what? I've interviewed all these motherfuckers. Who the fuck have you interviewed? See, there's more to it.
So that's a good point.
Yeah, there's more to it than just views.
There's a goal. Set a goal for a video. A goal for a video isn't always views. I know that's the thing you get judged on. Stop worrying about other people's judgment, because here's the thing. I will take gladly less views on a video for double the ad revenue. But that's because I'm partly driven by the money. I'm not like, I'm an entrepreneur. Of course, I'm driven by money.
That's the thing. You're full time. No, you're full time, bro. And that's this whole podcast has been trying to tell people, that if you want to do it, but take it seriously. Essentially, that's been because this is your livelihood here, dude. There are videos. There are videos that get less views, but they might gain more subs even with less views because they are reaching the new audience, sure.
Or they're for the new people. They're a recruitment video for your brand. They're a recruitment video for your channel. So there are videos that are like, a subscriber machine, but they may not get the views. And there are videos that get views because plenty of YouTubers go viral with small channels, but then they never get their subscriber count really that much bigger. You've seen it all the time where people get like 250,000 views. They have like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 subscribers, but they had 250,000 views. So where are all the subs, right? But then people get this weird thing in their head where they judge, well, you got a bunch of subs, so where are your views? And I'm like, nah, it doesn't work that way. It's like I only care about the video I care about at the time that I care about it. And that's it. And that's all there is to it. And then the algorithm says, well, a lot of people don't care about this right now, so we're not going to push it right now. But later, 6 months later, a video can blow up. You've had it happen. I've had it happen. So, don't go deleting something because I'm like, it didn't perform, I'm going to delete. It's like, because you don't know what the future holds for that video. My most successful video got 90% of its 1 million views after 6 months.
Right, that happens.
You just never know.
I had one of my streams that was a stream. For some reason that I cannot explain, I talked to my partner manager about it. It blew up, and I don't understand why. It's a dated stream about an old Super episode, and for some reason the algorithm just chose to push it. I could not even tell you why. I have no idea.
Any number of reasons. I mean, maybe that episode aired on Toonami again.
It didn't, though. It didn't. I looked into all those things. It was really weird, man.
Sometimes it's a mystery. Sometimes it is a mystery. Now, for me, in my thing, it was that a bunch of people started making videos like that later because it became a popular topic. And yep. Mm-hmm. And I had the best thumbnail too. So that means I was ranking number 1 for that topic. And it blew up later, and I was in suggested with the best thumbnail, so then I was just getting all the clicks.
Right.
So so that mattered. Because again, it was a marketing it was a business topic. It was about like passive income, and back then, none of the business people were going serious with thumbnails back then.
Right, right. No, I agree.
Sometimes being best in class. So being best in class matters, especially if you could do it early and become known for it. So like Geekdom was saying, there's videos that could make your rep better, and that matters. There's videos that could make your rep better. There's videos that might be good for search for later. May not get a lot of views and suggested now, but maybe it blows up later. There's videos that might get good AdSense revenue because it gets a better CPM rate for you. Even if it gets less views, those views are worth more money than they're worth more money. And that's going to be better for you.
Here's the other one that people never think about. What if somebody sees that video and then hits you up and opens up an opportunity for you? What if
that's happened to me?
Happens all the time. What if
videos
a company
that didn't perform?
A company sees. Do you know how shocked I am? This is, and we talked about this before I started recording this. There's people in the NFL who have Super Bowl rings that watch my content. You know how weird that is for me? That's very weird, dude. Yeah. There's a guy in the NFL with a Super Bowl ring that watches Geekdom101. That's weird.
Dude, I have people sometimes get on me about either my viewer subscriber count or sometimes small YouTubers will say, how can I take you seriously when you don't have this many views or this many subs? And that's the funny thing, is that the successful YouTubers don't care about that, because I'm looking at my new subscribers of the last 28 days, and I'm going to read some subscriber counts off to you. I'm not going to name their names. I'm going to read subscriber counts off to you.
Right.
1.19 million subscribers, because, like, by the way, the new YouTube dashboard does it in ranking order by how many subs people have. 1.19 million. 634,000, 603,000, 586,000, 422,000, 253,000, 251, 215, 165, 77, 671.5, 64. Like, so again, these are some not small fry channels, and if people with 500,000 and 1 million subscribers take me seriously, and those aren't even the biggest people subscribed to my channel, then it's really funny to me that smaller channels sometimes really don't understand what someone values in a creator or in a video, because it's not the views. In the real YouTube community, aside from a few people that act a certain kind of way, and some of them, they just do that for the fans, and they just do the whole clout culture thing just to be funny or as a meme. But in real life, most successful content creators don't care about people's sub counts and don't care about people's view counts, and it doesn't matter, and they don't hold it against them.
They don't.
My friend Viper has, I think, 1,400 subscribers on his live streaming channel and 3,000 subscribers on his main channel. And he's mostly a tech YouTuber. And on his channel with 1,000 subscribers, he's had Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, who like has 10 million subs now. He's had him on his. He's collabed with him 3 times, and he's a small YouTuber. He doesn't even have 10,000 subscribers. He's collabed with like one of the biggest tech YouTubers, like 3 or 4 times. Had him on the podcast before. He has had. Your Average Consumer, Jedner, and his wife on there multiple times. He has multiple YouTubers on the channel that are friends of the channel with over 100,000 subscribers, myself included, as a 400K channel. So, like, this is somebody that is so genuine and so nice that he has people in his audience out of his 1,400 subscribers or his 3,000 subscribers. A lot of us are people with 100,000 to over 1 million to 10 million subscribers that support this man. He's had Jonathan Morrison on there too. Like he's had iJustine on there. He's had OG and big YouTubers, and it's because he's just that good of a dude, and he brings the community together, and that's his real mission. Is he just wants to bring people together and actually show people how good the YouTube community is, and people support him, and like we're always happy to drop what we're doing and get on his streams, and he's always fun and entertaining. He don't have to be big to be a big deal in this community. And people always talk about quality over quantity geekdom, but they never think about that when it comes to who's watching them. They never think about the quality of their viewer versus the quantity of their viewers. That there might be people that, it might be a few people, but they might be people that are really well respected. You might have the best people. You might have the biggest people.
You might have people who hit you up in the DMs and say, hey, you want to come to this show? You want to do this? Dude, I went to WrestleMania 34 with 2 NFL superstars, and I sat in the 4th row. That's something as a kid I've always wanted to do, is sit in the 4th row. I mean, I didn't get front row because Randy Orton's family was in the front row, but I was right there in the 4th row, and that would never have happened if it wasn't for Geekdom101. And I didn't ever make a video sucking off the NFL. I never hit up these people. Like, just think about that. Think about it's crazy, you know.
Opportunities.
You never know who's watching.
I've met people who were heroes of mine. People that I used to read the books of.
And they're
knew friends now. Like, yeah, and we're friends now. Like, there are people that I like, people that help me just by reading their content start my business. I've read their books, and now we're friends. And some of them even look up to me for things that I know that they don't know. And we've done work together, we've done business together, we've done interviews together. It's like these are friends now. People who were my mentors became my colleagues and then became my friends. And that would have never happened if I hadn't taken the chance to bet on myself and put what I had out there to offer. And if I'd worried about the numbers or worried about growing or any of that, I didn't worry about that. I just worried about doing the best work I could and getting it right and being there for people, replying to everybody. You really want to grow in any platform. You really want to grow your business. Be a good human being and make sure you're giving people the time of day. A lot of people say they want to grow, but they act like they're too good to reply to every comment when they don't even have 10 of them.
Right.
You know, You remember Geekdom, like how I replied to like, remember when I had like 150,000 subscribers and I was still replying to every comment?
Yeah, I used to do that
and everybody called me crazy.
I used to do it too. I used to reply to every
now,
comment.
granted, that's not sustainable anymore.
No,
but,
it's
like,
too many.
But like, remember when I used to do that and everybody was like, that's insane. But it worked. I grew faster than most people because of that.
Well, I didn't listen to those people who were saying that didn't work, because people, whenever somebody says something like that, man,
it's not that they said it didn't work. They said it was crazy.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
They said it's like,
I mean, it's just, but it's your time. You're choosing to do what you want with your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I reply to comments
exactly.
and I read them, but I can't reply to any of them because my videos get, like, my newest video has 1,700 comments. That's a lot of comments, man.
Oh, Lord. That's a lot of comments, dude.
Dude, it's a lot, you know. Almost every video I put out has at least like 500, 424 for this one, the 801 for this one.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm expecting more on that one.
But when you're trying to grow and when you're saying you want this, you have to be willing at the beginning and those stages to go to extremes. Absolutely. To go to extremes. Like, even now, dude, like, I reply in DMs, in voicemail DMs on Instagram, where I'm not as big and it's now a more intimate community. I try to reply to a lot of the comments over there because it's a smaller platform for me. It's like 17K over there, but it's like a really good community. It's around, like, not the same content, but more about my personal journey and the motivation stuff. And so it's really solid, but like, people are shocked and they're like, wow, this isn't even a robot. This is like, you literally do reply.
Yeah, people are always shocked,
you
bro.
leave me one.
Yeah.
It
happens to me too.
They're like,
oh my God, you responded. Yeah. What I don't like though is when they talk shit to you. That's real pussy shit. When they talk shit to you and they're secret fanboys. Oh my God, you responded. Yeah, I think you're a bitch. Piss off. Don't talk to me ever again. You know what I mean? That's happened to me a couple times.
You blew it.
Yeah, you fucked up.
Blew it.
You fucked up now, bro. Don't try to use anger and trigger a creator that you like to get their attention. There's much better ways to do it.
Especially if you look and you see that they genuinely already do reply to people. You don't have to do that. Like, just like, you know, the low tier effort, you're just saying, oh, I'm not clever enough, or I'm not creative enough, or I'm like, I can't, you know, stand out any other way than to be a shock jock. That's the lowest, like, that's like, what is it? That's like, what is it Vegeta would say and everything like that? It's like low class trash.
Yeah,
like
low. It is low class. It is low class. It really is. And he obviously, in that situation, Goku was rated as being low class, but he surpassed it, which is kind of the whole thing about this entire thing is, you know, to be an entrepreneur, to be self-employed, you really don't have to do anything except for really be patient, do your research, you know, put time into it. But I think people can do it, and it's not for everybody. It really is.
Find good mentors. That helps a lot. Like, they can help you take further. They can
read
see
a lot
something
too,
in you that you,
if you want.
You mentors from afar. Like, look, sometimes there's something that you didn't know that you didn't know, and you can discover it. And sometimes if you work with a mentor, they can bring out potential you didn't know they had. They might see something in you. They might encourage you when you really need it, and that could make a difference and everything like that. I mean, if you watch Dragon Ball, you know that. Like, so it could really help. I mean, and like Geekdom was saying, like, you know, it doesn't matter where you come from. You can put in the work to be a super elite.
No, for sure, and that's the truth. Now, before we get out of here, man, what do you want to plug for everybody? The floor is yours. Plug anything you want. Go for it.
Like, the main thing I would say is, like, go check out, like, my YouTube channel. You can go to youtube.com/RobertoBlake2. That's like number 2. Look at the content. See if there's anything. I've made over like 1,300 videos. You don't have to be a YouTuber. You may want to be an entrepreneur. You may want to be a freelancer. You may even want to do some personal development. Just look at what I have to offer on the channel. I just want to say, it's not all about YouTube. If you want to be a Twitch streamer, there's nuggets of advice there that work for everything. Self-employed, anything. And I'm just sharing, a lot of, like, almost everything is grounded in my experience and people I've interviewed and things that I've learned and things that I've done. I'm not somebody who's going to BS you. I'm not somebody who's going to talk about things I don't know. I try to be very educated, and if I don't know something, I do research and I look into it for you and I present what I find. And I also show you a lot of my data. I'm one of the only people who shows my actual real numbers. So just see if there's something there of value for you. If there's not, it's no hard feelings. It's cool. But see if there's something of value there, and then only if you feel you've gotten value from me, then you can go and you can check out one of my websites. You can check out awesomecreatoracademy.com. If you want to be a content creator or entrepreneur, you can check out awesomecreatoracademy.com. See if there's anything I offer there that you think is worth your investment. And again, if not, just enjoy the free content. Like, I'm not here to convince people, Danny. I'm not here to convert people. I'm here to offer the value that I have, and people can take it or leave it, and that's it. So if it works for you, if it feels like it resonates with you, if you feel like my personality and my style, my training is a good fit for you, you want to be in my dojo, that's cool. But if not, I'm very hopeful that you'll find somebody that can put you on the right path, or that you'll discover it for yourself, because I know it matters.
Right. No, for sure. For sure. Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, thank you so much I don't even know how to say that. Thank you so much for being here, Roberto. It means a lot to me. I'd love to have you back at some point in the future.
Yeah, anytime, man. Like, I'm here for you anytime. And like, I'm happy to do anything.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
On the other side, because we're in a lot of the same geek hobbies and everything like that. But no, thank you for just taking the time this evening and to opening this up to your audience.
No, and thank you again. I hope that they got something from it. It wasn't just complaining. I thought it was a good conversation, and hopefully people can learn what it's like behind the scenes.
I think they got to know us. I think they got to know us a little bit better, and they I think they get it.
Right. Well, that's what this is all about. So, all right. Well, thank you again. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.